Hello everyone, I am back once again, and today we're going to be showcasing a Wi-Fi match for Pokemon Sword and Shield. And as you can see, my opponent is going to be Chuchito once again, because remember in the last match I mentioned that he actually offered me a rematch after I lost to him in the second match, so I was just like, okay. Now, I forgot to mention this as well in the last two matches with Chuchito, but the two matches were basically OU mixed battles, basically. I was using the Tapu Lily team because that was the only team I had that was OU mixed, basically. However, here for this rematch, I told him that I didn't have any other OU mixed teams, so yeah. And he said, I'm fine with whatever else you want to bring. So like, I told him that I had this OU team that's full on OU, it's not OU mix, and I also had an RU team. And he said I could bring whichever, honestly. And yeah, I decided to use the OU team because, you know, at this point, given the RNG that this guy gets on his side a lot of the time, I did not want to underestimate this guy whatsoever, honestly. I think that was my mistake when I first battled him. I kind of just felt like, oh yeah, I could definitely win, honestly. And then all kinds of madness just, you know, started kicking in, and that was just a nightmare, honestly. So yeah, obviously I'm just gonna, you know, try to not let my guard down this time, obviously. Hopefully. It might not even matter if RNG is still on this guy's side, obviously. So yeah, here obviously we're gonna start the match, and the team that I actually have for this guy, or that I use for this guy, is actually going to be basically a team centered around Sharpedo once again. It's basically Sharpedo with a bunch of Oyumons, basically, because I wanted to see if I can make Sharpedo work in this match, because again, like, I still haven't been able to finish a match with Sharpedo, honestly, whether it be by getting the final kill or even late game sweeping. So I'm just like trying to see if I can make this happen now, especially since this guy seems to be like into battling me a lot. So I figured, why not experiment while I'm constantly rematching this guy? But I still wasn't going to underestimate him, of course. So yeah, but anyways, my opponent's team here obviously is going to consist of a Togekiss, it's going to consist of a Miltank, going to consist of a Frostmoth, an Urshifu, a Heatran, and a Dragonite. Now obviously this team is definitely scary. I already saw what the Urshifu can do, since this is the water type variant of Urshifu. Togekiss relies on RNG, just like this guy did in the first match. And speaking of the first match, he also brings back the Miltank, which is... I'm just like I was already considering giving up, honestly. But I wanted to believe that maybe luck will just not be that savage and, you know, like, do not harass me with RNG again. Because obviously if I lose again because of RNG, I'm probably just never going to play this guy again. Even if he offers me like 7,000 more rematches, honestly, I'm just not going to do it. Just because honestly, you know, I think enough is enough, obviously. So yeah, here's hoping that we do actually win this match. Now here, I actually did not know what I wanted to lead with, honestly. But I was running out of time, so I ultimately just ended up picking up the Sylveon, you know, to lead. And I'm hoping that I'm not keeping with the tradition of just leading terribly, and you know, this guy ends up leading something much more favorably against Sylveon. So yeah, here we go. So my opponent is gonna lead off with El Chipotle, which is the freaking Heatran, unfortunately, which means that yeah, I'm still sticking with the tradition of Generation 8, leading badly every single damn time, which is unfortunate. So here I have to now switch out, obviously. Now, unfortunately, there's not a lot I can switch into. Like, I could send in Dragapult, but he can hit me with a powerful Flash Cannon if he chooses to just straight up attack me, as opposed to, you know, going for Toxic or Will-O-Wisp or even the Rocks, you know, just predicting to switch out, you know. But either way, I decide to switch into the Dragapult regardless, because I feel like I need to start, you know, attacking his team and not let it have, you know, full HP, so that maybe, just maybe, Sharpedo can come in and take it out later, you know. Since the goal is to try to get Sharpedo to do something in this match, honestly. Now here, he does play it safe and go for the Flash Cannon, obviously. So now here I'm just going to go for the Surf and hope I can do a lot of damage. I was also hoping he would not see this coming and just switch out. Thankfully he stays in and takes the Surf, and I do get a decent amount of damage, which is perfect for my Sharpedo later on. So yeah, here he's going to get his Stealth Rocks up, which is kind of bad actually, because I don't think I actually had any I don't think I had any hazard removal for this team, so that's kind of bad. That already goes to show you how terrible my team building capabilities are, but it is what it is, obviously. So here obviously I try to go for another Surf on this Heatran. I didn't think he'd stay in, but I wanted to believe I could get good damage on whatever he decides to send in. Here I think he switches into the Togekiss, though I'm not really sure. Okay, yeah, it is the Togekiss. Okay, so this Togekiss is gonna basically take the Surf kinda well. This looked like a fair amount of damage, although this was actually a crit, so not really, obviously. And at the time I was actually kind of annoyed, but then I had to consider that Dragapult's special attack isn't the greatest. It's only 100, and Surf is not even stab on Dragapult, so obviously I probably should have expected it to do less, honestly, but I was actually annoyed that it took it very, very well. Especially here where I decided to switch into the Zeraora because, you know, I was kind of anticipating a Thunder Wave, either that or an Air Slash. He ends up going for the Dazzling Gleam here though, and this Dazzling Gleam does an obnoxious amount of damage, which, considering how well it took that freaking Surf earlier, kind of made me feel like, you know what, this shouldn't be doing this much damage. All of that offensive investment should have gone to the Spadef or something, no? Unless, of course, he like maybe invested Spadef and Spatak, you know, because that's possible. Because I think Togekiss's HP is actually pretty good, but I'm not really sure though. Either way, yeah. So I try to go for the Plasma Fist here, and he does switch it out. Goes into this Heatran, which is kind of nice, honestly, because now I get to take this thing out. This was one of the mons that I couldn't really do much with my team, honestly. Only Dragon, or Dragapult, not Dragonite. Dragapult can actually do damage to this Heatran, and Sharpedo, but Sharpedo would have to send it, you know, it had to be sent in like safely and whatnot, which is kind of not easy, honestly, as you can see. So with Heatran gone now, I think here, if I'm not mistaken, I think he sends in the Dragonite? Question mark? I'm not really sure again, because it's because this match happened months ago, obviously, so I kind of have a bad recollection of this match. But yeah, okay, so from the looks of it, he does send in the Dragonite, which is nice. Okay, so here, this was a very, very precarious situation for me, obviously, because the Dragon Dance is most likely coming here, given that Zeraora definitely cannot one-shot this thing. Even if I had Outrage on the Zeraora, it was not going to be able to one-shot it because of the multi-scale ability, which I'm most certain it has, honestly. So here, I decided to just stay in and go for the knockoff in case he has something crazy like a weakness policy or something. So yeah, here, it turns out to be a Life Orb, but that's just about as threatening, honestly, because at +1, he'll be able to attack anything on my team, and with the power boost from Life Orb, I might not have even survived anything, honestly. This thing might have just straight up swept right here, honestly, if anything. However, something very interesting happens here in this particular portion of the match. So here, obviously, I was doomed to lose the Zeraora. I was thinking of switching something else in to possibly, you know, take whatever this thing might want to go for. But I ultimately just decided to stay in and just go for the Plasma Fist here, just to see what he would go for. Interestingly enough, though, he goes for the Outrage, which is cool and whatnot. However, for some reason, I actually didn't pay attention to this portion of the match. I don't know what I was doing here, but I did not see him go for this move. So when I got to this point right here, I was thinking, okay, he probably just took out my Zeraora with Earthquake, so I was just like, okay. But then I was like, then I realized that, wait, I didn't actually see what move it was, so I was just like, oh, so what do I want to send in? I was thinking on Ferrothorn or Sylveon here, but then I had to consider that this thing could have Fire Punch or Iron Head for both. I wasn't sure, but then I reminded myself, wait, but I assumed that it could have had Earthquake, no? So because of that, I decided, you know what, let's just go for Sylveon. I feel like Iron Head is very uncommon on Dragonites anyway, so I just figured going into Sylveon. I was running out of time too, so obviously I had to just make up my mind. And Sylveon was the pick ultimately. Now here, obviously, I was still thinking, okay, I gotta hope that he doesn't have Iron Head, and if he has it, hopefully I live it, and if I live it, hopefully I don't flinch. And then this is when I was like, oh, I realized that this is, he only went for Outrage, and that was actually perfect, which means sending in Sylveon was like the best thing I could have done here, actually. So basically another one of those, like, you know, dumb luck situations kind of thing going on here, basically, which is cool. But yeah, so now Sylveon gets to take out this Dragonite, which is really, really good. So that's one crisis averted. We don't have to worry about a sweep here. However, here, now here I was a little confused, honestly, because I actually know very little of this mon, honestly. I think the mon that he sends out right here, I believe, is the Frostmoth. Yeah, or no, never mind. It was not the Frostmoth, actually. It was actually the Togekiss. Okay, so, okay, the Togekiss was, okay, I think here I was actually wondering if I wanted to switch back into the Dragapult for this, expecting an Air Slash. But I also had to remember that Thunder Wave is a possibility, so because of that, I decided to ultimately stay in and take an Air Slash. It did not flinch me, thankfully, but he did get a crit, so this guy just has to get RNG in some capacity, doesn't he? But yeah, honestly, it's important that he doesn't flinch me though, because honestly, there I would not be able to attack it, and without that flinch, I was now able to, get some decent damage with the Hyper Voice, obviously. I mean, it looks like a little bit. That's only because the Sylveon, I believe, was not even offensively invested. I think it was Spit Def invested, if I remember correctly. So yeah, obviously, considering it has no investment whatsoever, that did a fair amount, honestly. Now here I was just thinking, once again, do I want to, like, expect another Air Slash here? But there was also just that conundrum that he could just go for the Thunder Wave now. So I was just like, eesh. Like, this felt like a 50-50, basically. I wasn't sure if I wanted to just stay in or not. I think ultimately I do end up staying in, though. So, yeah, to try to see if I can take it out, honestly. I am fairly healthy with this Sylveon, so I wanted to believe I can maybe take a few Air Slashes if I'm going to be flinching a lot, honestly. So yeah, and here, as you can see, I was running out of time, so obviously I just had to make up my mind. I just stay in and go for the Hyper Voice and hope that I don't flinch with this Air Slash, which, as you can see, holy damn, I actually don't flinch again. 2 consecutive Air Slashes from a Serene Grace Togekiss, and I did not flinch whatsoever. That's actually insane, honestly. Because, yeah, for those who don't know, yeah, Serene Grace boosts Air Slash's flinching ability to 60%, which is kind of insane, honestly. So, and if he had Thunder Wave, then there's also the whole, I think, 50% chance to get fully paralyzed as well, plus the 60% chance to flinch. That's like a lost cause, and I was kind of expecting him to go for that here, but he never went for Thunder Wave, interestingly enough. Which kind of makes me wonder if he even had it, honestly. Which, if he didn't, then holy shit was I baited so hard this whole time. But it is what it is. Now, here, speaking of the Frostmoth, here's where the Frostmoth comes in now. And this was the part that was confusing to me, honestly, because I actually didn't really know what this thing can do other than Quiver Dance. And if it does that, did I want to stay in with the Sylveon to try to go for more Hyper Voices? I ultimately decided not to and just go into Volcarona just because, yeah, I didn't feel comfortable with a +1 Quiver Dancing Frostmoth, honestly. If I don't one-shot this thing, most likely I'm just gonna get Quiver Danced again and then get Blizzard to Oblivion, honestly, and I didn't want that, obviously. So I hard switched into Volcarona here, and he does actually end up going for the Quiver Dance, which is the only thing I know this Frostmoth can do, because for one thing, it's a Moth Pokemon, and second of all, I actually remember a match that I had with Pokemon where he actually used this Pokemon, and he basically went for that, along with some Blizzards, and I kind of didn't want Sylveon to kind of suffer that fate. So yeah, I switched it in, and I was going to go for a Quiver Dance myself, but then I figured if he gets enough Quiver Dances, he might be able to start taking hits very well. And if it escalates, he's going to probably end up sweeping me with this Frostmoth. So I was just like, let's just stay and go for the Fiery Dance. And I do somehow outspeed this thing, actually, and just take out this thing entirely. So despite the +1, this thing was not able to take anything, which was good to know. I actually didn't know what the stats for this thing was, so I was kind of fearing that it would be able to take it. But yeah, thankfully I took it out. I got a +1 as well with the Fiery Dance as well, so that's actually good. Now here with this Urshifu, I was considering staying in. I was kind of hoping he wouldn't go for the water move here. I was hoping he'd predict me to switch out here, obviously, because I felt like the switch was kind of obvious here, because I definitely don't want to stay in on a physical attacking water type mon like Urshifu if I cannot outspeed it with Volcarona, honestly, which I cannot. Or yeah, I don't think I can, because most Urshifus are usually jolly natured, and this Volcarona, while it is timid nature, I believe was not fully invested in speed. So I was just thinking I was just considering if I wanted to stay in to maybe just hope he over predicts. Unfortunately, he does not, and just ends up going for the Surging Strikes, which, yeah, that move always crits. So I was like thinking, okay, this is definitely a 2-hit KO right here. I get the Flame Body up as well, so this means that now this I actually do take this other hit from Surging Strikes thanks to the burn, but you know, I still get like the 3. He still gets the 3 hits, obviously, so he just takes out my Volcarona entirely. I think had I not gotten that 3rd hit, I would have just been able to Giga Drain this thing. Not sure if I would have been able to take it out. Probably would have, though. But I would have been in a much better position had I actually gotten that. But you know, I didn't, obviously. But it is what it is. I was actually just glad that I at least got the burn, honestly, on this thing, because, you know, Urshifu is definitely something that I had very little switch-ins now, honestly. I only have Sylveon, but if he has the Poison Jab, obviously that's going to be devastating, obviously. You're going to see here later on, I'm going to point out something here later in a bit right now, but not right now. Okay, so here I'm just going to send out the Ferrothorn. And I decided to go for the Leech Seed, because I figured, yeah, getting a Leech Seed on this would be nice, because if he goes for any attack, I can just, you know, get a decent amount of HP back and also punish it with the iron barbs. But he's gonna actually switch out the Urshifu and to the Miltank, and I was just like, okay, getting Leech Seed on this is valuable, because if he starts going for T-Waves and attracts, assuming this is the same set obviously, then I'd be able to at least get HP back and have chances of not getting infatuated and going for other things such as knockoff, you know, so to see what items they have and whatnot. Here I was considering getting rocks up, but I ultimately decided to just go for the knockoff because we're already late in game anyways, and these two mons don't really seem to care about rocks anyway, like the Urshifu and the Miltank. So I was just like, yeah, let's just go for the knockoff here. And here, interestingly enough, he actually did have a choice scarf, so that means that even if I was fully speed invested on the Volcarona, I was gonna get outsped anyways, honestly. So there you go. Now here I was wondering if I wanted to switch out now, because this thing is still burned, so I figured, yeah, I could switch out literally anything except Sharpedo, obviously, because Sharpedo will not appreciate any hits from Urshifu, even burned, honestly, because, you know, Sharpedo's that frail. So here, I think I just decided to stay in and go for another Leech Seed here, take the close combat, and then here I realized that he goes for close combat, which means his Spadef and defense are going to go down, which after getting this this Leech Seed off, I decided to actually go for the Garble afterwards. Because yeah, Leech Seed is very, very good for, you know, recovery here, especially after taking that close combat. And if he chooses to go for another one, I can probably just, you know, still take it and then, you know, wither this thing down sufficiently so that he only has the Miltank left. And if he's going to try to rely on the RNG from there, you know, I'm hoping that the Ferrothorn can at least take a hit or two before, you know, getting the Leech Seed off, so that the rest of my mons can actually, you know, recover while Miltank does its shenaniganries and whatnot. So yeah, so here I finally go for the Garble right here. He's gonna go for another close combat, which means it's gonna be now at -2 in defense, which is actually really, really good for me, because Garble, yeah, it's based on speed, so it's gonna do a lot of damage, but Urshifu is still a water type, so obviously it's gonna resist it. So with this -2, this Garble comes in quite handy. It doesn't take it out, but the burn is definitely going to take it out, and if not the burn, definitely the Leech Seed. So this was looking incredibly nice for my Urshifu. I don't have an Urshifu. My Ferrothorn, obviously. Now here, I believe this is his last Pokemon, the Miltank, and he's going to send it in now. Now here, obviously the play for me was just to go for the Leech Seed, so that if he tries to go for Thunder Wave and try to fully paralyze me and then go for Attract, I can at least still get Leech Seed damage and, you know, recovery and whatnot. And that way I can actually start punishing it when it starts going for the body press, which, yeah, it does super effective damage, but, you know, remember, it's going to get punished by the Iron Barbs. And with the Leech Seed, it's going to chip it down significantly, honestly. That even if it went for all those attractives and T-Waves, I probably would have been able to cripple this thing enough to the point where it was not going to be able to do anything at the end. So that's actually good for me. Interestingly enough, he actually doesn't end up going for T-Wave or Attract, honestly. I guess he just wanted to make sure this Ferrothorn was gone as soon as possible, but it's not going down very easily. So here, and with the leftovers and Leech Seed here, I think he actually tries to go for another body press, thinking that, okay, he'll definitely be able to take this thing out now, right? Crazily enough, it doesn't. I still leave it on 3 HP, so I was just like, wow. So he could have gone for the Attract or T-Wave here, but he just chose to not to, because he thought he could probably take out the Ferrothorn here. And that wasn't the case. Now here I tried to go for knockoff to see what item it had. It turned out to be a Rocky Helmet, so therefore I don't actually end up knocking this thing off. And here I figured, okay, I want to see if Sharpedo can come in here and just take this thing out based on from where it's basically left. Only way this Miltank outspeeds my Sharpedo is if it's actually a plus speed or even a speed invested Miltank, honestly, because this Sharpedo was actually not Jolly Nature, it was actually adamant to do as much damage as it could with Crunch boosted by Life Orb. So obviously here I decided to just, you know, try my chance and see if I can actually get Sharpedo to do something, and it actually does. I go for the Crunch and I take out the Miltank. So like, holy damn, I actually beat Chuchito despite some RNG going in his favor. I think in this match, I think the tables kind of turned and the RNG was starting to kind of rotate back into my favor, which was kind of amazing. I'm just a little annoyed that it took 2 matches, or 3 I guess you can say, for it to finally happen, honestly, which was just insane, honestly. But yeah, and to make matters even better, I actually win with Sharpedo. like I actually make Sharpedo actually like end the match with a KO basically. Like I finished the match with Sharpedo, which was something I've been wanting to do this whole time in Generation 8 and was just not able to. I mean, I already did it in Brilliant Diamond and Shining Pearl once in one of my matches, and if you don't know which one it is, I'll link the video in the description below. But yeah, in Sword and Shield, I have never been able to finish a Wi-Fi match with Sharpedo because Sharpedo just never gets to do anything. I think in the CBDL for Season 3, I think I actually was in a position to possibly sweep with Sharpedo, but unfortunately the match went to time, obviously, because, you know, 20-minute timer is basically a bitch, obviously. But yeah, because of that, it never ended up happening, the Sharpedo sweep and whatnot. So yeah, I think with all that said, I think that's going to be it for this match. Thank you once again to Chuchito for giving me all these matches, obviously. I'm actually glad that this guy is actually one of the more nicer people in the community, despite his strategies being super annoying. Because honestly, like I said before, there's people who, when they beat me in matches, they usually just tend to dodge me afterwards and start getting like cocky in the process as well. And I was just never a huge fan of that, honestly. It's one of the reasons why I sometimes take, or maybe all the time, I don't even know, I a lot of the time take these matches way too seriously, because it's like I kind of don't want to lose the matches and then have people shit talking me all the time afterwards, honestly. And then on top of that, dodging me. So it's like, yeah, imagine that. It's just like, I don't want to deal with that kind of stuff. So again, it's kind of nice that Chucho here is actually a nice person and not, you know, not like one of those people, you know. So thank you for that, Chuchito, and GG's once again for all these matches. Obviously, you still have my number, obviously, but you know, it is what it is. Obviously, we'll see if later down the road we can actually battle again. But yeah, it's certainly not going to be in Generation 9 though, just because, you know, Generation 9 turned out to be a bit of a disappointment, honestly. I said I wasn't, I don't know if I said I wasn't going to talk about this, honestly, but Scarlet and Violet, I'm not a huge fan of those games still. I did hear that the 60-minute timer was back for those games, but let's be honest, the games still look bland as sin, honestly. And on top of that, the game doesn't even have Sharpedo in it anymore. So it's like, and I think this DLC, I actually did look at the spoilers for the DLC, kind of, at least particularly the decks, because supposedly they were going to include more mons with the DLC. And for both packages, neither of them had Sharpedo in it. So I was just like, yeah, nah. And they don't even have Crobat either, so that I can use the Cyrus team in the game either, honestly. So it's just like, what's even the point of getting these games, honestly? Just for a 60-minute timer that you can only get if you actually pre-arrange for the match, honestly. Which is only favorable for draft leagues, which at this point I'm just kind of like getting tired of, honestly. Anyways, with all that said, thank you for watching this match nonetheless. I hope to catch you guys for the next one whenever I get to it. For now, just take it easy and have yourselves a good one.